Next up, we have our blockchain and cybersecurity group. We have CJ and Jennifer from Pace University, and they're here to talk to us about what they learned.
This bizarre clip, I like.
Okay, so we did blockchain and cybersecurity. Starting off, we're computer science majors. Well, I'm computer science, he's IT. We obviously kind of already knew about cybersecurity, but blockchain was kind of new to us. So going in, we had to do like preliminary research, and while we were doing that, we learned a lot of people are going into blockchain, but when you think blockchain, you think cryptocurrency. So we were thinking of what are some like commercial uses that would be like really awesome and that would, make lots of money in the future.
Right, so we started off looking at blockchain and trying to, I could have waited a second. We started looking at blockchain and trying to figure out, all right, we have this 5-week project, how do we complete this project, it's the end of it, and started looking at it very narrowly, like, okay, let's look at cybersecurity specific to blockchain, and found that we kind of had to flip that process over because blockchain in itself inherently contains cybersecurity features that will allow it to make anything it touches more secure. So trying to figure out specific vulnerabilities to it, or trying to figure out what specific industries it will enhance in a cybersecurity way seemed like an efficient way to go about things. And instead we had to look at what industries were using it, and then come from, after we knew how they were trying to use it, come from what they were doing, how it would make it more secure. I don't think a lot of companies are looking at how do we make this tech more secure. They were looking at what other things does blockchain offer this industry, and how, and then cybersecurity is more of an afterthought. We were kind of comparing it in our paper to, is it giving me issues? Is it staying? Cool, it's staying. We were comparing it a little bit to TCPIP, which is what a lot of the internet is based on. The idea that companies initially, when the internet was being developed, you would have to develop a data line between 2 different job sites, and that dedicated data line would only allow data between those 2 sites. If you wanted to add a new line to a new data center, you have to connect that one too, and then say data center A and B are connected, B and C are connected, A and C are not going to be able to communicate with each other. So the routing processes allowed in TCP/IP allowed C to now talk to A. Most people aren't going to get that deep into the specifics of what this tech does, and blockchain is kind of in that same realm, where because it's not a tech that we're going to hear a lot about at the surface, but we're going to feel it come up from underneath a lot of industries. One such industry being banking. So in banking, when you transfer money between 2 different banks or transfer money internationally, banks communicate on a private internet of sorts called SWIFT, which allows them to transfer that money. The problem being that SWIFT was developed around 30 years ago, which means that they could never possibly imagine how much traffic the internet would produce and how often we'd be making transactions on things like our debit cards, how they could never have imagined that every month Netflix would be processing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of transactions, and take that on Netflix and multiply by every other company in the United States and the rest of the world. So what blockchain can do there is blockchain can automate these processes by allowing them to, when you make a transaction, instead of someone having to take the data out of the SWIFT system and then record it manually as a person, blockchain will just do that automatically. When you send Netflix your payment, it's uploaded into that ledger, and you're done from there. In this sector, blockchain also has the advantage that blockchain is much cheaper. To go and to make a transaction fee on Ethereum is something like, I think, around a penny, around 19 cents. Whereas a transaction fee through the SWIFT system is about $4.50, and you eat that when you pay a transaction fee on an ATM or something like that. If you've ever gone to an out-of-bank ATM, that's what you're paying. You're paying for someone to send it through the SWIFT system, someone to take it out of the SWIFT system, write it down, input it into the bank, and then get it to you so you can have 20 bucks minus $4. Another place that blockchain is being used is healthcare. Healthcare is being changed in a lot of ways, in the idea that, so imagine you've ever been to a doctor and you have to go see a specialist or something like that. In order to transfer your medical records from your primary care physician over to that specialist, you have to give consent for them to send it, and then you have to take all these files, this thick thing from the age of like, whenever you start going to the doctor, like probably earlier, since you were born, thick packet. That can all be stored within a blockchain that you can maintain in your wallet or something like in a blockchain wallet. Blockchain wallet, and offer to. You could then give the new specialist access to it via an app or something like that, as opposed to having to transfer documents that way. How am I doing for time? Good. Okay. Supply chain and e-voting. That's a little bit more you, if you want to talk about that.
So supply chain, really quickly, it's kind of China's been in a lot of the research that I did, China's been trying to use it to like keep track of where the food is coming from, because there was like a scandal with where the food was coming from, and so then people feel much more safer using it. And then with e-voting, that's pretty like self-explanatory. Everybody would only get 1 coin, you get to vote, and after you use it, it's gone. So no more of that like voter fraud or like issues with trying to get to a polling place. It's like in your phone, easy.
Okay, property records. Property records is actually probably one of my favorite applications of blockchain. So let's say you're in a politically unstable country, like some of the countries in the Middle East that have been dealing with ISIS. Say you're displaced from your home, the town hall or wherever your record of living on a certain piece of property, a certain piece of land is destroyed in the process. You're displaced, and then in 5 years, when you try to go back to where you lived, now someone else claims, no, I own this land, I lived here, and that record is gone. That's on top of the fact that you've been displaced from your home for 5 years. You now have to deal with, how do I return home? With the idea that, so blockchain, because it is a decentralized tech, because a lot of different people, or because the information in a blockchain is stored in many different places, we can remove that problem by tokenizing your home, or tokenizing your ownership of the land, effectively saying this digital token represents this piece of land, and because it is in my Bitcoin wallet and because my wallet is signed to this token, I can prove no matter where I am that I own this piece of land. I think that politically destabilized idea is one of the more interesting ones, but it can also simplify just the sale of homes in the United States and things like that, and help to automate these kinds of transactions instead of having to have a lawyer or a lawyer's intern manage moving all of these files and making sure that people get the data they need. These can all be handled within electronic signatures and electronic contracts that can automatically be fulfilled once either payments are made. You make a payment, and because of blockchain, you have to make a payment in order for the housing or the property token to be sent to you. There are a lot of cases outside of even these 5. It kind of became, because we had 5 weeks to do this, became a situation of like, oh, I really want to touch on that topic, but we don't have enough time to finish. We got to keep things a little focused and condensed. And because of that, we feel we may have come short a little bit, but no, not your fault. It's Pace's fault. We learn more doing this than we did taking midterms, I promise. So because of that, we definitely are looking for ways that we can continue this research beyond just the project that we had handed to us. It's something that excites me, it seems to excite you. Our partner who couldn't be here, Santhosh, is incredibly excited by it. We've been talking about this idea we had for blockchain for the last week and a half. So we're all excited about it, and we want to find ways to keep working this kind of tech. Cool, thank you. Does anyone have questions, or am I handing it to you?
I'm going to say questions for last.
Okay.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.